Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge, or in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people.
Which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you. And we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara, life coach, wife, and mom to 4 incredible and unique children. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and confidence that once felt so lacking. I created the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves feeling trapped and with no one who really understands. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle your ability to dream. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you are a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Hello and welcome back to the Special Needs Mom podcast. Happy summer. Now we're all officially in summer. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We made it. And actually this week, as you listen to this, you can think of me as I am in the woods of California, hopefully relaxing. I am thinking a lot lately about how to set up a vacation that's both rejuvenating to me and supportive to all of my people. But really, it's mostly just thinking about how do I support Levi so that I can relax. So I have some ideas, and I will let you know how it goes when I come back and check in on the podcast. So this week's episode is going to be the continuation of the conversation, the interview that I had with Beth last week, Beth Thorp. And I'm going to do a brief introduction of who she is in case you're just happening to come on this episode. However, what I really want you to do is go listen to the first half of the interview first, which was last week. And then I want you to come back and listen to this part of the interview. Really, we've set it up or kind of split it up into a before and after, where last week's episode was Beth's story, her journey, her dark season. And this week's episode is kind of turning towards looking at where she's at now, but also recognizing that likely many of you are not yet where Beth is at in her life. But I think I'll share it more in the episode. Seeing somebody like Beth, I think, offers a lot of hope to each of us as we find ourselves at varying places that we might relate to of her journey. We talk about the faith evolution and what she went through in her spiritual journey. And she's just very open about all of it. And I got to share some of my favorite parts of the book. She's going to share all about the experience of writing a book, a memoir of her life. And I think that there are so many little nuggets of value for each of us in this episode. So listen, and I would love to hear what you're taking away from this episode. So don't hesitate to reach out over on the old Instagram, or I have actually a contact form where you can easily contact me through a link that will be accessible on the show notes. Let's tell you a little bit more about Beth and get into the episode. So Beth is a philanthropist, author, speaker, and co-founder and executive director of the Mitchell Thorp Foundation. You can go read Beth's extensive accolades that we shared on last week's show notes. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. It wasn't overnight.
No.
You got up and you went and, created this organization and the foundation that you have. But tell us a little bit about anything you want to share in the healing journey, but also kind of what you ultimately created.
Yeah. So you're right. It doesn't come, you don't snap out of it right away. It's, in fact, for us, it was 2 years. It was 5 years walking the journey, 2 years to come out of it. Mm-hmm. So 7 years before we could even see the light of day or find the hope to even be hopeful to others. So the healing journey took some time. So we did several things at that point. We did some grief share programs at the church, which was helpful. We actually took it 2 or 3 times, but by the third time you're like, we still weren't totally.
It's not taking.
Yeah. My husband and I still had some deep pain, and we knew we needed one-on-one. We sought out for us, it was a spiritual counselor, very prophetic woman who knew our walk, prayed over us, prayed over Mitchell. So she kind of knew everything. And so she was gifted in the gift of healing and how to break things off. So the enemy doesn't take a foothold, which he so tries to do, to say your life is ended. There's no more purpose or life. That's just what he wants to do, to kill, steal, and destroy, which he already just did with my son. Mm-hmm. To make a long story short, she took us through a whole series of forgiveness, forgiving everything. She did us separately in the same room, but then forgiveness of certain things she was picking up in me and my husband, what he was carrying, forgiveness for all the doctors who couldn't find all the answers, forgiveness of family members who saying things that they shouldn't have said, forgiveness of whatever we were carrying, right?
Yeah.
To lay it down and to break it off. And the Holy Spirit is amazing in how that works. When the Holy Spirit gets to the root of what the deepest pain is, you can't help but keep it together. My husband was a wailing mess on the floor as well. I've never seen him like that. But there was a lot. Men have a tendency to hold things in.
Yeah.
Yeah, which he suffered greatly from his own throat cancer 2 years later. So, think about things, how you have to be very careful when you're walking through this journey of taking care of the caregivers, that means mom and our dads, of learning to take care of yourself along these walks, these journeys, because it can affect your health. So be careful of that and be mindful of it. But anyway, yeah. So she took us through a lot of that healing. It was really that session that the next day, it was a freedom. It was like, we went through that refiner's fire again, right? Mm-hmm. You're going through enough pain and then you're reliving it and breaking it all off of everything you've been carrying over the 5 years or whatever it is that you've been carrying. And you really need to find someone you trust to go through that type of exercise, that you feel in that space, and inviting the Holy Spirit to then free you up and God to work in your life. It was the next day. It was almost that transformational moment. It was like a light bulb went off in me. And I used to do a whole different line of work, and my husband did too. And I just said to my husband, I write it in the book, God spoke to me. I said, I don't want to do anything else on this earth unless it has eternal significance. The enemy messed with the wrong mama and Papa Bear, and I'm pissed.
I love it.
And I almost got fire in my belly. Even my pastor to say, says, I have never met a woman who has so much determination and so much fire. And it's because it just switched on a dime. I don't know. Again, it was that transformation that God put us through to take us to the other side, to now he literally was wrapping his arms around us. I felt anything like it, literally carrying us along the way. He's like, I'm going to show you the way. That's what I felt like. I was so vulnerable to get out in the world again.
Yeah.
People watch you. People watch how you react. People watch how
That is so true. The way that you just said that really, sorry, I'm going to interrupt.
Yeah.
But I think I experienced that being a mom of a child who has a brain tumor, right? Like it's kind of nobody wants that diagnosis, right? And it's different, I think, than the experience of having a child that either was born with, or like in my case, Levi was 2 when he acquired his special needs and his disabilities. You feel that people are watching you and wondering, okay, how does this look? I think we all know we never want to be in these shoes, right? But then when you are in the shoes, you are aware that this is not a normal experience. So anyhow, I just wanted to say, yeah, like this, I appreciate you putting words to that.
Yeah, exactly. That's very true. But, at that point, I'm still grieving, right? I'm very vulnerable. Yeah. I mean, God knew how vulnerable I was, and even Brad. And I really felt as that he was wrapping his arms around me and says, okay, I'm going to take you along the way. This is when I heard him so clearly speak to me. And I speak to that in the book, How God Speaks. In the deepest part of my grief, he whispered in my ear, in my soul, this is not the end. This is the beginning. And I sat up in my bed and I was like, what's that supposed to mean? This is not it feels like the end. I don't even want to be on the planet, because part of you died with him. What do you mean this is not the end? This is just the beginning. And that, when I look back at that and the transformation of going through all the forgiveness and the whatnot, that recollection came back to me because Brad was in the church at a meeting or sitting upstairs, and a couple of families or people were telling about 2 other boys he coached had cancer, and the Lord spoke to his spirit, and he was up there going, you need to start a foundation. So that just came up in him. And he came home to tell me this. I'm still grieving. I think we need to start a foundation. God spoke to my spirit to help other families going through what we went through. And I said, you want to do what? I'm like, what? And I'm still coming out of this, right? And then I had to go back and think of what the Lord spoke to my spirit, saying, this is not the end, this is the beginning. And then you're trying to put the 2 together, and you're like, I was like, okay, well, whatever you want to do, right? I was still not quite there yet, right? So I was not there yet. But God knew that my spirit is very light. It's always been joyful, but I was not seeing the joy in the world. I could not see the beauty in the day. Then I knew I was heading down the wrong hole. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Deep hole of depression.
Yeah.
Deep hole of everything. So that's when if you're heading down that hole, you need to get help. And it's okay, men and our ladies who are listening to this call, it's okay to reach out for help and get help. When if you find yourself in the deepest pit of just, I can't take this anymore, or husbands wanting to walk, or mothers even walking because the journey is too hard, know that they're making you stronger for a reason, persevering through trials. And you begin to think about the story of Job, right?
Well, not every listener will know the story. So give a little synopsis of who Job is.
Well, Job is in the Bible, and he was tested. He was very faithful and very well off as a man back in biblical times. And God knew how faithful Job was, but the enemy wanted to test him. So it was very interesting in the story as you read it that God even allowed that. He says, but you cannot kill him, but you can test him. So he even allowed that. So we don't know why certain things are allowed and not allowed. the mysteries of God. But anyway, make long story short, he was tested. His children were all killed. The house collapsed on him in some kind of storm, and just one thing after another. And the disease that he even carried, just one thing after another, right? One traumatic, but he never cursed God for it. God gives and God takes away. And then anyway, when he came through his fire, refiner's fire of it, and God understood how faithful he was, even in the midst of trials and that he went through, he was richly blessed in the end, even more so. So anyway, it's a story you can read in the Bible, but we kind of felt like we were Job at the time, going through a Job scenario in a sense, in our own personal life. I don't know how I got on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know.
So
I'm like, oh my
healing,
gosh, there's
the healing and restoration. So we're going through the healing and restoration part of it. So that takes time to heal. Find people that can help you along your path to heal. And then
I want to mention here, I want to interject here, even if you're not healing from the passing of your son, right? Not every one of us is in that situation. I think this applies to when you go through significantly traumatic events or new diagnoses, or, I think I even relate to this very much as I'm healing and recovering from the last year of new traumas and fears and just things I didn't think that were going to happen. And so I think this applies to all of us, even though Beth's situation might be a little bit different. So continue on. And I want to hear a little bit about when you created the vision, or like kind of when you saw Mitchell's Foundation come to be. Tell us a little bit about the foundation and like your heart behind it, if you will.
Well, they heard that I had that transformational moment after our healing session, and of that I never want to do anything else on this earth unless it has eternal significance. So everything I did in my previous life, I was in the fashion industry, I had no desire to do anymore. It was think about, have you ever heard of cases where people who are alcoholics or drug addicts and they hit rock bottom, and somehow they see the white light, and God can actually take that taste away. They wake up and they don't even want it anymore. It's almost one of those. It's a total transformation. I can't explain it, but people who've gone through that can testify it, that it's real, that it does happen. You just have to have faith to accept it and to walk in that new strength. Again, still not knowing the future.
Yeah.
I still did not know the future of what was going to happen. I just woke up with that feeling and that fire in my belly. And so when my husband came home saying we should start a foundation, I think that was the beginning. So then he started it, and we had to, there's a lot to go into filing the paperwork and having all the due diligence put in place and for starting a organization. And then our first thought was, really wasn't thinking about the foundation. We wanted the ball field that Mitchell played on renamed in his honor, something to do in his memory. So we had to go through the city council, and that was a whole nother ordeal. I'm still very vulnerable, and I had to go, like you said, stand up in front of people and start asking why you would like a ball field in the city of Carlsbad renamed in your son's honor, and you're pitching of what it would mean to the family and then the community. And we started thinking about at that time that only, and giving scholarships to young athletes who loved to play this game that Mitchell loved so much. That was really at the extent of it at that time. But Brad then, I said, had that epiphany at church and came home to tell me that. So from that is when we started the foundation. And even there, we got on our hands and knees. We both prayed, Lord, this is obviously something you want us to do. So we're going to make you CEO of this. You're going to have to guide our way. We don't know the first thing what we're doing, but you do. Right? Talk about blind faith. When they say, well, that's why I love to talk about faith. How strong is your faith? Do you have faith? Faith is knowing it can be done before it's going to happen. An inner conviction, that profound knowing, right? That comes before reality confirms it. That's faith. Stepping off of the cliff, so to speak. Not knowing what's going to happen, but just doing it, stepping out in faith to make the next step happen. So that's what it was. And we started it, and we grew, and then we started to say, okay, well, now we need a family. Well, we had two families that we knew in Carlsbad. That were the two boys that played baseball with Brad, and it was so interesting because both families knew each other. And in a small town, everybody knows everybody. Everyone's trying to help this family. And where's it going? That's where Brad thought, we need to form a bridge here and help many families. And so that's how it started. And then we just began growing ever since. We started with one program, our medical and home assistance. And now we've grown into 4 different programs. The medical and home assistance is our biggest one. And that's basically anything not covered under insurance.
This is one I'm a frequent flyer of. I have one of those stamp cards. I'm about to my 10th stamp.
I know. And it broke my heart because you guys rolled off. We helped you guys for about 5 years. And then so.
We graduated. We
graduated.
We were on the other side. My company got to give back,
Yeah.
And so, well, we were back for more.
Oh, gosh. I know.
Repeat customers. Well, yeah. So continue fast forwarding. So now tell us, you have these, the different segments of the foundation. What are the different ways that now, what are we 13 years later, how many families just this year, or do you know the number of families that the foundation is actively supporting now?
Well, gosh, yeah. Families roll on and roll off, but we had about 28 families. And that's huge, especially starting. We normally would have, 10, and the growth just kept growing, right? So it's a lot of families to accommodate. We're a little bit more than just handing out a simple $200 gas card. That I find that the children's hospitals, I said, what did the children's hospital give you to help you with gas? Well, $200. So I'm thinking to myself, well, that doesn't help. It helps a little, but
that's just a drop in the bucket. I just got I actually just looked at my gas bill from this last month. Do you want to know what it was? It was over $1,000.
Are you crazy?
Gas.
Well, that's their big request right now for families that are commuting back and forth.
Yeah, that was with radiation for half the month. So anyhow, sorry, side note. So here's the value though. You had a unique way of coming alongside our family, knowing that it's the cash money that actually really, really helps. And you're actually the first and probably the loudest in a good way voice that said people want to help, they just don't know how. Right. And so really ultimately what you and Brad have created is a way for people in the community that are not in our shoes to help. And you're actively always promoting, opportunities for people to enter into our stories, which I think have a lot more to say about in the future as far as what it looks like to actually be a community. But we'll have that be another conversation. So you do the home,
the medical home assistance program is our first program that we saw the need. And then out of that, the more families we began to help, we started to see bills coming in for more therapy outside of the hospital. Things that parents wanted to do that they weren't getting enough therapy, and they wanted to do, like in your case, reins, any other type of swim therapy, any other
equine therapy,
and our counseling for that whole umbrella falls under healing and rehabilitation. And then also sibling support we get in there too. We've had hired school tutors for families, anything to support that whole family unit. Again, to try to lift it up, to give them some sense of normalcy in a not normal situation, right? So everyone is getting their needs met, so to speak. So we try our best to do that. All the families we helped over the years, the ones that come to us married, we've been able to help stay married and not end in divorce or separation, which is huge. And then sometimes we have a lot of families who are single parents. So you can imagine how hard it is to hold that together. It's very devastating. I don't know how some of them do it. It's very hard. So that's how we kind of did that. That was the second program, healing and rehabilitation. One of our board members came to us when his daughter died of a myocardial disease, and he was kind of into the wheelchair conversion program. I said, well, tell us about that. And maybe that's something we can offer under the foundation umbrella. So he kind of was our board member for several years and kind of showed us the way on that and how to get wheelchair conversion vans more affordable than when we were looking at them. Very costly. and how to get people involved, because that's a very costly expense. It's like a $60,000 sometimes, So there's different components. I think of like a wheel, think of a wheel and a bicycle, all the spokes. There's different people that need to be involved to make that happen. First I asked, are you involved in the regional center? Because they get grants for $10,000 just to do the conversion portion. Our foundation can contribute this much. Let's get you start fundraising for another portion. And before you know it, we get families to see the big picture of, wow, this can really be a reality for me. And, it takes a couple of years, sometimes 2 to 3 years, to finally make enough funds to make it happen. But when it does, we've honored our 6th van. So it's
wow, that's incredible. So one of my friends from a fellow podcaster, I had forgotten that she had a GoFundMe that I must have contributed to. I didn't even remember because I was on the email saying like, we got our van. And it was so fun to see that. And then actually to remember, and I was like a very small part of that.
Yeah.
And anyhow, that was really fun. And just, to see the 6 vans, like that's incredible. And then your last arm of the organization or the foundation is the youth leadership program. Yeah.
Yes, that was a beautiful thing that came out of it. Kind of a nice, happy thing because we're dealing with very hard, serious stuff.
Yeah.
We found a lot of kids, and we have our events, our 5K run walk every year, the first Saturday in February every year. And we do a baseball tournament. We found the kids, they need community service hours for one. 2, they like giving back. They liked our events. They liked how active we were in the community. And we saw kids coming out. So we actually modeled the program after another foundation that we kind of modeled ours under back east. And they had a youth program. So we started to look at that. And we're like, oh, we can do that. We can start that. So that's what happened. So we started that program. We started with 25 kids. Now, this last year, we had 70 kids.
Wow.
I had to cut it off. It's like, I can't handle anymore. I can't put them in the room. But we train them in servant leadership skills. And we have a wonderful director now. We've gone through 2 directors. We're on our 3rd director who's facilitating the program. And I also co-facilitate with him at times when on certain subjects. So he gets the male and I get the female voice. So because there's both
beautiful
boys and girls in the program. So we start in August with orientation. We meet once a month and we go all the way through the school year through June.
And I had a chance to, I think you invited our family to kind of, during COVID year, like to have these kids actually see the product of their leadership. And so Levi and I came and did a quick thing. And so I got to see the finished product, if you will, of these kids going through the program. And I was like so impressed with just these kids that had been touched by and allowed actually the impact of being part of the community of, really like you said, like there's very different energy in the youth leadership program as there is in the hospital visits and the many children that are dealing with issues like Mitchell, unanswerable questions, right? So I think pairing them together actually is really, really powerful. And I think we can talk on and on. We have a lot to talk about. I want to make sure we get to talk about your book. You took the time of COVID to put your story into words, and I highly recommend this book. I read this book during when Levi was, I can't remember the exact time, but it was at a time that one of the harder, darker times of this year. I can't remember which surgery it was before. And so reading through your book really was stepping with you during recounting your whole journey. And I didn't know a lot of, I knew the big picture, but I didn't know how much pain Mitchell was in and how much pain you had to witness your son in and not be able to help him. And it just really allowed me to enter into my own grief, but to be part of your story again, with the overarching light that you were here, you were on the other side. Like, yes, I knew the heartbreak of the story, but I also knew the connection to heaven that ultimately you created. And it just really ultimately led to light for me. So I wanted to see if you would read just this little excerpt that I chose. That was one of the pieces of the book that I just really connected with and really brought me back to something that was helpful to me. So go ahead.
Okay. On page 146, I write, but why wasn't he getting better? Why was nothing working? And worst of all, why wasn't God stepping in to cure him? Or to at least help us diagnose the problem? I began to feel as if God had turned his back on us, that this was some kind of cruel way to test our faith to the highest degree. But I felt that way only at my weakest moments or points in my life. I knew the truth. When adversity hits, we humans tend to think we must have done something wrong, that God must be punishing us. This is a very wrong ideology because the Lord is a loving and kind Father. And our relationship with him transcends all our circumstances. So when I began to think those wrong thoughts, I dug deep and continued praying. I'll stop there. Yeah.
Yeah. When you read that now, what comes up for you?
I mean, there was definitely that. It was a testing, like again, Job, testing of your faith, testing of everything. And I remember specifically, God wanted me to surrender him. I had to surrender totally. And I think I was hanging on so tight to try to make it better, to fix it. And I couldn't fix it. I guess the point where it's out of your control, right? And it's so hard for mamas because mamas are supposed to make things better, right? Always kiss the boo-boo, make things better, right? Make things better. And I couldn't make it better. And it was a very profound moment that I had to finally, I thought I surrendered my son to him, but I had to truly surrender my son, no matter the outcome. That was another transformational moment because I would be wrestling a lot with the enemy of get your hands off my son. You will not take him. I would scream at him, yell at the enemy. You will not. I was one of those, the determined mother. And I had to get to the point where I was so worn down. I had no energy left. I had to lay it down. I had to surrender at the foot of the cross. And I just said, Lord, he's yours. You love him just as much as I do. I can't do it anymore. I can't. I mean, I knew I would do it, but I just couldn't keep carrying it.
I think that's the thing, carrying it, carrying the thought that you actually had control, right? And I think we talk a lot on this podcast about control, about what we're resisting. And so I think the reason that excerpt really spoke to me is I think you do talk a lot about in the book about surrender, about your journey of surrender. And I think at that time I was wrestling with the same thing. And so I think to be able to read your story, I think just really spoke to me and gave me just peace from your story and borrowing your strength during the time. Because I'm not always as evolved as you when it comes to, just all the things. And so I borrowed a little bit of that from you. And so thank you just for being a model and for being light out there in this, what can be a very dark world, especially in these dark moments as we journey.
Isolated. You feel isolated, very isolated. I know parents, I know I did. Life goes on. You see everyone enjoying their lives and you're home not doing that, right? It's like your life.
I like that. Not doing that. Okay. So thank you. We got a lot in here. And is there anything on your heart that you want to share as we close out this episode?
Sure. 2 things to your audience. If you find yourself in a situation where you need desperate help, you can go to the Mitchell Thorp Foundation website and fill out an application for assistance. We'll take a look at that. That's mitchellthorp.org. And then I'll
do a link on that as well.
So you if you are interested in purchasing the book, you can actually buy it on the Mitchell Thorp Foundation website. And we also have it under another website called A New Creation. That's the title of the book. Because not everyone knows to go to the Mitchell Thorp Foundation to buy the book. So it's anewcreation.org or mitchellthorpfoundation.org.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And I didn't even say the name of your book. So thank you for that. And of course, all the details to be able to buy the book and to be able to reach out to Beth will be on the show notes. So it'll be very easy to find. And thank you so much for being a guest and for sharing your story with the world, both here today and in your book.
Thank you for having me, Kara.
One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes, get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.